Hey, this is Ron Young with Little Caesar, and you're listening to Focus on Metal.
Focus on Metal!
Hey, Metalheads, Scott Thompson here, welcoming you to episode 591 of Focus on Metal. Yes, unbelievably, you didn't have to wait a month for the next episode. You know, I've been editing up audio, I've been sitting on stuff, and, you know, today I was like, you know what, I've just got to get at least one of those things out there in an episode and out to the listeners' little metal ear holes. So this week we welcome back Ron Young. You may know him as the lead vocalist of Little Caesar, but also back in 1994, he was part of a project called Manic Eden, which people like to put as being an amalgamation of Whitesnake and Little Caesar. I think, you know, after listening to what Ron has to say this week, I think you might find that just kind of a misappropriation of, you know, trying to cram a supergroup together when it really wasn't what it was. I mean, yes, had Tommy Aldridge on drums, it had Rudy Sarzo on bass, it had Adrian Vandenberg on guitar, and Ron on vocals, but still what they were going for wasn't a combination of those two bands. It was something different. So back in March was the anniversary of the release of the Manic Eden self-titled and only release, and Richie decided it would be good to get a hold of Ron and talk all about Manic Eden. And of course, Ron being Ron, he loves to talk. He's a great person to interview. He's got lots of tales to tell. And so we kick it off with a big chunk of talk with Ron about what's going on with him right now, what's going on with Little Caesar right now, what's going on with the music business right now. And I want to say maybe 45 to 50 minutes into this, they finally actually get to what the intended call was about, and that was the short by Ron standards, history of Manic Eden. So if you remember that group from back in the day, or you're a Ron Young fan, or just, you know what, you're looking for some good episode to listen to, I think you will enjoy this week's episode. And also, I should let you know that on, I think around April 12th or so this is actually after Richie even recorded this with Ron, that Music Theories, that label, did release a limited release of the Manic Eden on red vinyl, and also the CD has been reissued. So if you never had it on vinyl, or you never had a copy at all, you have a good opportunity to go and get yourself a physical copy of that. Like I said, though, the red vinyl is limited. I think it's selling fairly quickly. You need to be on the lookout for that. Although, weirdly, I think Target might have it. Anyways, like I said, Ron, he is a talker. A long episode this week, close to 2 hours, actually. Almost thought about splitting this puppy in half, but you know what? I'm going for it, doing the full boat this week. So without any further yakking, I'm going to turn it over to Richie and Ron Young.
Hello?
Is that Ron Young?
Yes, it is.
Hey, Ron, it's Richie here for the interview.
How you doing?
I'm all right. Let's start, Ron, by talking about what's happening with Little Caesar. I know you're supposed to be doing shows later in the year with Taikedo in England, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going over there in September for like 10 or 12 dates, something like that.
Okay. How well do you know Danny Vaughan?
How long have I known him?
Yeah.
Well, probably about 10 years. We did a show in his hometown in Spain. And, you know, I knew the band and everything, and we did this crazy gig in this little town called Estepona, which is right on the water. And there's a lot of British expats that live there. And it was packed going out the doors. And, you know, it was summer, so they pull open all the doors. And it had this kind of fucked up PA. And so I actually went to the local music store, and I bought these cheap Chinese speakers to add to the PA because it wasn't going to be loud enough. So, being an ex-sound man, production manager. I set it all up and I got it all, going, and it was screaming and sounding good. So we start doing the show and the place is going nuts and it's roaring, and somebody passes up this sign that says, "The cops are coming if you don't turn it down." So I showed everybody in the crowd the sign, and it made them go nuts, and we just kept playing. And we finished the set. The cops, showed up, like 10 cops. So we were done, and, we're like, "Come on, hang out, have a beer." Like, no, everything was cool. Anyway, so right after the show, there's Danny and Melissa's. And Danny came up and introduced himself, and my wife happened to be visiting at the time. So we decided to go out and, get a bite to eat, and we just hung out and talked for hours, and we just really hit it off with him. It's like Danny's a super nice guy, and he's smart, and Melissa's really smart and nice, and we were like, wow, you guys are you're lovely, So we just, we exchanged numbers, and then through the pandemic, we were doing Zoom calls together, just talking about what the fuck is going on? How are we going to survive this? It's like, so we talk about a million things for hours, we just kind of really hit it off. And then when they come to Los Angeles and visit, we go out with them. And so, we just kindled this great friendship. And so, about a month back, Danny called me and said, "Would you guys want to play with us over in the UK?" And I've been wanting to get back there, but the economy's been so bad, and everything's just been so weird over there that we just haven't got anything going. So we were like, "Yeah, we're in." And there's some great venues, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So,
Ron, how difficult is it now compared to pre-pandemic?
Oh, it's way more.
To tour the UK, because you're dealing with Brexit now when England left the EU. So
so you've got Brexit on top of the pandemic.
Yeah,
and this is the problem. Problem is that people don't have as much disposable income. Number one. Number two, they kind of got conditioned to just Netflix. So they could sit around and just watch movies from their homes. So they've kind of gotten a little lazy. Our demographic is up in that age range that you're kind of packing into a club during COVID or a lull of COVID or the remembrance of COVID. People just have this little rewiring in their brain, or like, do we want to go pack in with the general public? I don't know, and then it's like, and then you add to it, the promoters, because they were, they got beat up so bad. These venues got beat up so bad during the pandemic. And so now they're offering much lower guarantees. They give you a better back end. So it's like, okay, say they used to pay you $1,000, just pull a number out, say $1,000. Now they're offering like $650, and they offer you a big percentage of the door, whichever is greater. So if you bring the fans out, you can make $2,000. That's great. But the problem is you can't commit to the flights and the vans and the gear. You can't commit to it with these guarantees that they're offering up front. It's a real gamble. And then the last thing of this is every band that waited 3 years to tour, they're all out on the road.
Yeah.
And so it's like clubs are booked like 18 months out now. Bands are booked that far out. And it's like, we're like, holy shit. It's like, people are jumping on tours for, mid to late 2025 already. And it's like, it's early 24. What the fuck, There's that. And then the last piece of this is the explosion of tribute bands. So you got these bands, these promoters would rather bring in, like a classic example. We did a show with Gilby Clarke at the House of Blues down in Orange County, Anaheim, by Disney. So there's a House of Blues down there. So we played in the foundation room or whatever it is, holds like 300 people. So next door in the big room that holds like 1,000 people or 1,100 people were two 80s tribute bands. Like they were doing Bon Jovi and Guns N' Roses and AC/DC, and they wore silly wigs and outfits. They would do costume changes. We had maybe 150 people in a room that held 300, and the next door was packed with two. They weren't even tribute bands. The tribute bands at least dress up, trying to look like AC/DC, trying to look like Guns N' Roses. And people are flocking out to see these bands because, when you're, say, 50 to 60 years old, you're like, I'll know every song. We'll go see this AC/DC tribute band. They're going to be, they have really good players. They've learned all the songs. All the guys are really good because I know a lot of guys in these tribute bands and they can play. And so here's a band that's doing AC/DC to the T with the outfits and the whole thing. And people go, yeah, I'd love to listen to 90 minutes of AC/DC. And so they're really turning out to venues to see these. So the promoters are booking these bands on the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night because that's the big drinking nights. That's the big party nights. And so they want to pack the club. And if they put in an Eagles tribute band or an AC/DC, or whatever the tribute band is, the places are packed. So then the original music bands go, okay, well, let's book a show Thursday night. We're going to let's look to see what's 4 or 5 hour drive from this particular show. And they're like, everything's booked. They're booked with tribute bands. It's like you can't get in on the good nights in the good venues because these folks are trying to lick their wounds and get the business back in there. And you put all this stuff together, and it's so hard to get it back out on the road.
You see,
this is all,
Ron. That's the struggle, I think, for bands like ye, especially when you go to Europe. You have to join up the dots. You can't just go over you can't do fly-in dates to Europe. You have to play somewhere on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night.
And that's the thing. Sunday, Mondays, Tuesdays, even Wednesdays, you're just playing so that you don't bleed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's like, okay, well, basically we're going to just cover our nut tonight. We're just going to pay for our hotels. We're just going to pay for the band. We're just going to pay for the background. We're just going to pay for the driver and the merch seller. And, so you're going to play to 100 people because they don't want to come out on a Monday or Tuesday. Now, the diehard fans do, but all the other folks that are, they're into music, they know the band and everything. We'll catch them next time. I got to work tomorrow. And it's so difficult. So you put all these things together, man, it is a struggle out there. It's really, really a struggle. The competition is stiff. The money's lower. You gotta roll the dice. I know guys they're doubling, tripling up in rooms. They're taking all their own gear. Anything they do to cut the corners. So a lot of the bands from our period, they got like 3 25-year-olds in the band who they just want to go out and try to get laid. They're playing their music and they're in a foreign country and they just think that's fabulous. So, don't triple. And it's only like 1 or 2 original members in the band, and the rest of the guys are just young, hired guys that have, they got nothing at home. They don't even have rent. They crash on some chick's couch when they come back home. So they jump in a van and they go and they're living the life, So God bless them, But all the other guys I know that are they're adults. They can't just leave for 6-8 weeks and have basically zero income. They're just breaking even or just a few bucks in their pocket compared to the money they make, when they're either working another job. I mean, I don't know. Unless you're in theater-sized bands, bands that are playing to 1,000-seaters. But, if you're in Bullet Boys or Pretty Boy Floyd or, a lot of these bands, man, they're not making enough money. They've got to grill it every night and do it for months at a time.
I'm actually surprised, Ron, that you mentioned Bullet Boys and bands of that ilk, of that size. They just did shows in the UK. Part of me is surprised that they can actually still pull it off.
In what way? Financially, you mean?
Yeah, the fact that they can actually make it worth their while to go.
Well, listen, it's define worth their while.
Well, there has to be some sort of a payoff to go and do shows over there, because with a band like Bullet Boys, they were a lot bigger in the US than they were in England.
Right.
And I know it's only Mark in the band now, the singer, and he's playing guitar.
Yeah, well, that's who I'm describing now as guy. He gets his guys that they'll go out there, and if they're getting fed, and they bunk up with somebody else in the band, and they get to plug in and put, rock out every night, and they're getting to do it, they're getting to go see the castle at Edinburgh. It's like, life is great. So, but they're not coming home with anything. It all goes to Mark. Mark's the guy that's, he's the one, that's got more adult obligations back home. So, he's paying these guys next to nothing. And he just promises them, hey, you're going to get fed, and you're going to travel, and you're going to get to see the castle, and you're going to get to see the cathedral, and you're going to get to meet some cute young girl, hopefully, in Grimsby.
Wow, you're going deep here.
Exactly. But the guys are on the plane already, dude. When they get to Grimsby, they go, what? It's like, yeah. Mark is pulling 53-year-old women from Grimsby. It's like, so they're jerking off tonight. They're not getting any action. It is definitely it's a Pornhub night, Grimsby. So
those words could either be the funniest combination of words ever spoken here on Focus on Metal, or an apt name for a new Netflix limited series.
But listen, this is what these. I battle it every year. I'm like, should we keep doing this? That's like when Danny called me, and Danny's like, listen, man, we'll share backline. We're gonna have so much fun. It can be nice venues. Everybody's really cool in the band, because you know what? We're all getting too old to deal with. I don't want to name names, but there are guys in bands that are just still assholes. It's like, dude, they throw their little temper tantrums, and they have their little demands, and they're cranky if it doesn't go their way, and they haven't put it into perspective that we're blessed to still get to do this, that there's still enough people. I mean, for me to be able to get on a plane and, do the gear and do the show and meet the fans and, go get some Indian food, to me, it's a vacation. This is, and that's the way it is for everybody in the band. We got jobs back home. So this is, some guys go fishing, some guys go hunting, we go make music. But I know guys that are still doing this, like trying to eke out a few bucks. And, I get it. It does make you cranky. And I get it that some nights is a harsh reality as to that you're 54 years old and you're playing to 112 people, and you got to double up with someone in a room, and you get $15 buyout, so you got to just go get a shawarma, and that's it. And you pray that the shower works in the hotel, So it ain't glamorous anymore for none of those bands that aren't, up at the upper levels of being able to still do 800 seaters, but there's so few of those left. And, that's why it was a great thing to double up with Danny, because, we bring two different fan bases together, and the response has been great on social media. Both bands, that's great. And that's the thing, you got to double up and spread your potential appeal across, because to get to see two bands and have a good night of music is a lot better than one and three local openers. It's like,
definitely.
People just know it's going to be just, oh my God, we're just going to be sitting there with our pints in the corner waiting for the shit to end before the other band gets up there, the headliner.
Yeah.
So, you got to do all these things, and you've got to be patient. You got to do it for the right reasons. And listen, man, if you're not like totally broken inside, like all of us, that we still love doing this, it's like I got rid of my heroin habit, but my music habit is I still haven't been able to kick that one, So.
Ron, when is the last time you played shows in the US?
Well, we do like little one-off weekends, but the problem with the U.S. is everything is so spread out. You know, it's like I try to explain this to bands over here. It's because people ask, well, why do you keep going to the UK? Why do you keep going to Europe all the time? And it's like, well, because you can drive 3 hours and be in a different country with a different language. And it's a whole, it's totally different. It takes 3 days just to get across Texas. You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, you can't do a connecting date in some little backwater Texas town. So, you know, you can go up into the upper Midwest and, you know, we're going to do like a Cleveland, Columbus kind of Cincinnati thing coming up in June. And we're hopefully going to do like a Boston, New York thing in August. We're trying to put together.
Well, I'm just outside of Boston, Ron.
Oh, there you go. Whereabouts?
Lowell, Massachusetts.
Lowell, yeah, no. I've got some stories with Lin City of Sin boys, you know, being held hostage, and being tortured by those guys.
It's better than Grimsby. God.
You got it. Well, at least I speak the language. You know, so it's fun up there. Yeah, so there's a promoter up there, this guy Al Ritter that we're talking about. But, you know, we went up there, and I'm trying to remember where it was. Was it the Token Lounge? I'm trying to remember. It was some place we played up there, and then there's like these little places like Kodo, which is just like there's sushi bars a day. We turn them into a rock club at night. You get maybe 80 people in there. Mm-hmm. You know, so we're going to come up there. I forget the venue. We went up there through that area with Junkyard because we're buddies with Junkyard. So we went out for about 3 weeks with those guys, and we did all through like Michigan and Ohio and Philadelphia, you know, Pennsylvania and Boston. We didn't get to we started in New York, Queens, on the outskirts of Manhattan. So, you know, it's hard to do. You know, where we had just enough fame to be able to continue to do this and torture ourselves. It's like we have just enough money to get like a nickel bag, you know, so in the cosmic picture of what we're doing, you know. And listen, it's we love to do it, but we made a pact like 12 years ago that we're doing this just for the music. It can't be about money. It can't be about any of that shit. If it's only for the music, that's the only way to do it. And, you know, it's, you know, you have to be very resourceful. You've got to be very grateful. You've got to be very willing to eat a lot of shit, you know, on a lot of levels. You know, because you go out there and you do this stuff, and the way you do the fly dates is, you know, there's opening bands and you use their gear. And some nights that can be very scary, you know. Yeah. It's like, how do I get a guitar tone out of this amp? It's like, I don't think it's possible. You know? It's like, what was the what decade did you change the drum heads on this thing? You know, and then
the last millennium.
Oh my God! And the last part of the equation is you have some like 20-year-old kid with an iPad that's running sound, and he doesn't know, you know, he's mixed like 15 DJs and one wedding band once. And you go in there and the sound checks are taking forever. And it's like, oh my God, dude, it's like my leather jacket is older than this guy, you know. It's like, I bought it new, you know. And, you know, you're trying to tell them how this shit it works. Like, give me that fucking iPad, dude. You know, it's like, and he's like, wow, how did you do that? I'm like, well, you see this gray hair, dude? It's because I've done this for decades. I did this for a living for 10 years. That's how I bought my first house. Was doing sound for a venue in LA, you know. Yeah. So you take all that, but you can't get pissed off. You know, what good is yelling at some 20-year-old kid? You know, and I watch people do it, man. I watch guys throw temper tantrums. You know, this is unacceptable. It's like, shut the fuck up and go back home. It's like you're lucky to be out here, but everything has changed. I mean, we at least could make some money selling CDs, I mean, that's how I funded getting Caesar over to Europe. Was like, okay, well, we're going to save up all the money from online sales and downloads, and we put that in the account, and now we need to fund making a record, or we sell the record and then take that and fund the tour. But it's like now everybody streams. Unless you're doing 16 million streams, you're not going to make anything compared to 100 records. You know, so there went that revenue stream. So you got to come up with good merch. A T-shirt design that people really relate to. I've done every T-shirt design. 70-80% of them are winners, but there's been a couple where nobody wants to buy them. And I come home, they're in my garage.
Oh dear!
I use them to buff my cars out. But it's a roll of the dice, man. It's all a roll of the dice, and you got to keep it going. Like I read the whole, let's just say that there's websites not to be named that thrive on drama from the bands of this period. And they love to talk shit, and they love to tear them down. And anytime someone shits the bed, it's all over this website. So today, it was about Jack Russell from Great White. I don't know if you saw this.
No, not yet.
He did a show a couple of days ago. Actually, it was a couple of weeks ago, opening up for Firehouse, oddly enough, who has the new singer, because CJ just passed away.
I was going to ask you, Ron, about CJ. Did you know him at all?
No, I didn't know him, but I totally admired. He was such a strong singer, I mean, he's one of those guys that's just a natural, I mean, he's had a great natural talent. And to see all the outpouring, of love and sympathy and empathy for the family.
Yeah.
I'll add that, CJ, definitely an awesome guy. We had him on the show way back in 2014. I was actually getting ready to mix and master this episode, trying to find that episode, because it's actually not up on the website. So I'm going to keep digging in the archives to see if I can find it. But was a great guy to talk to, and he will definitely be missed.
Hey, what's up out there? This is CJ Snare from Rubicon Cross, and you're locked and loaded right here on Focus on Metal Podcast.
And that's the thing, man, is we're getting up into those ages where people... some of us are going to live to be 85. Some of us are going to die at 65. That's how we get to that average human lifespan thing.
Keith Richards is never going to die. Him and Willie Nelson.
Dude, he is fucking up the curve for everybody. He really is. But God bless him. I mean, here's a guy who should have been dead 15 times over. I don't know if he just pickled himself, and diseases don't even want to come near him. They're like, that's Keith Richards, man. We'll never thrive in that body. But so it's like, here's Jack Russell. He can't even hold the microphone. They didn't even basically turn him on. He's sitting there like he doesn't even know where he is, in a chair, and he's completely out of it. And he can't sing, and he can't hold the microphone. And he looks like when you bring somebody with dementia out from the home and put on some music, and he's kind of clapping out of time and just looking at the crowd when he's supposed to be singing, waving at people. And the internet went nuts with, screw the band for not saying, we're not doing this anymore, dude, you need to go get medically treated. Screw the promoters, screw Jack Russell for doing this. And you know what? All of that hurts every other band trying to do this from that period, because more and more, man, guys can't sing. It's one original member. All these little things that dilute the brand and the legacy of what's there. And I don't know if it's because they're too scared to stop, or they don't know what they're going to do with themselves. But at some point, man, I ask myself this every year: do I want to keep doing this? And I keep doing it. I enjoy it. But every year it takes me longer to get in shape and get ready, and there's more things that I have to be careful of, and just all of that. And it takes a lot more work than when you were 30. And you got to be able and willing to do that work And, like at least John Bon Jovi went and had vocal surgery. Finally, I watched clips of the guy touring for like 2 years. He couldn't sing his own songs.
No, he couldn't.
He's playing to 3,000, 5,000 people. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? How do you charge people good money when you can't even sing your songs?
See, here's the nub on that with me, Ron, is do you want me to sing in the voice that I have now, or do you want me to run tapes to make it sound like I did in the 80s?
Right. See, like Kiss does. Now they're faking it. And I won't name all the people. Kiss, I don't care. There's been 20 million things said about them publicly. We're still not saying that.
They don't care.
No, exactly. They don't. They just sold their catalog for $300 million.
Yeah, they don't care.
What anyone says. Right, exactly. Gene Simmons knows that people talk shit about him every day. He loves it, know. But, there's other guys, I won't name other people that I know who, when their voice gets weak, they start with the tapes. The drummers have to be really good at playing to a click track, and nothing can go wrong. But sometimes it does, and sometimes it gets caught on video, and bands get busted. But I don't understand that pantomime, not in this genre of music. I understand why Taylor Swift does it, because she's dancing around and running around stages, and nobody knows she's faking it, So on certain songs, some people, that's all they do, and I guess it's like a dildo. It's a musical dildo. They don't care. It's like they're having sex, and the lights are going, and the sound is going, and the voice is perfect. And, okay, that's not really music to me. It's a show. Okay, so you're going to see a great show. But when you're in a club with like 400 people, and you can't sing your notes, or you're going to just fake it. Every time you do that, the next band that comes through, you're disillusioning the fans. Do they want to take the risk of coming out, staying up past their bedtime to come see a shitty show, or look on a stage and see only one original member and call it whatever the band name is? And I don't know, man. I think all of that's just really diluting it. Now, should you just hang it up and go away? I don't know.
Ron, being someone that, came from a band that was an 80s band, and you went on a lot of big tours back then, and then you went into sound, can you go to a concert now, even an arena show or a stadium show, and you can look at the band and you can spot it straight away that they're running tapes?
Yes, if I look close enough, yeah, I can spot straight away. It's also a curse that I know how to do sound, because I feel like I want to run back to the soundboard. Let me grab that equalizer there, because it's so fucking muddy, or it's so bright, or it's so, all that stuff. Sometimes it's hard for me to enjoy. I have to keep my mouth shut, or my wife smacks me through the whole concert. Shut up and just listen. I'm like, yeah, but there's so much low end. It's just a muddy fucking mess. I can't even hear anything. She's like, shut up. I'm enjoying it. Okay, I'll shut up.
Okay.
Be quiet. So, yeah, it makes it hard. Behind the curtain is the wizard, and the wizard is really just a dude. He's not really the all-powerful Oz, So sometimes it's like being a magician, going to a magician show. You know how they do every trick, So it does take away for some of it. But on the other side of the coin, I'll go see someone like Chris Stapleton. And I've seen about 4 of his shows now, and I'm completely fucking blown away by this guy. An amazing voice, an amazing songwriter, and a great guitar player. It's all about great tones with great players in the band, incredibly dynamic. And there's no lights going, there's no pyro going, there's no flashing LED things. It's just a guy with his guitar and his voice, with a great band behind him, delivering his songs, making the songs unique every time he plays them. So you look forward to seeing him again and again, because there's going to be some subtle nuance that happened in the moment, because he was feeling it a certain way, because the crowd was reacting in a certain way. And that, to me, is the magic of music. That's what you go to see every night, is what's going to be the little bit of subtle, unique quality to this, where I walk away feeling like if I didn't see him tonight, I would have missed something special. And that's the ticket that keeps you coming back. And not enough bands do that. I know, that there's a lot of legendary bands, that still, they're known for their live performance kind of stuff. But unfortunately, a lot of the bands that I came up with in LA, and actually the reason why I put the band together was I couldn't believe how bad the players were in the bands that were getting record deals and selling millions of records. Producers were polishing them up, simplifying, making really simple parts, completely processing the sound, making sure that every note was perfect, either through technology or let's try your part for the 58 millionth time, and then put a lot of reverb on it, made it really lush, and they released it. It sold, 1.2 million records, and then you go to see them live, and they're just a bunch of ham sandwiches up there. They can't play. and to me, that was, seeing the Stones, seeing, I know Black Crowes were like that, and there's Guns N' Roses too. Some nights really bad, some nights really magical. What's tonight going to be? You don't know. But to me, those are the bands that really play, and they weren't just, going through the motions, let alone with people, not even the original players. And every one of those original players has a certain nuance to their playing that makes the music what you remember it to be. So it's, like on a couple of tours, we replaced our drummer. Okay, so we've had, of the 5 original members that did the first record, 1 left right after the first record. So we were down to 4 quote-unquote original members. And then we had to change a bass player. So it's been 3 of the 5, for the last 12 years or whatever. That's
pretty good, Ron.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
Yeah.
So, proud of that.
Yeah.
And keep that, we got to keep that going. So the thing is, during the pandemic, our drummer is an admitted germaphobe. COVID blew his fucking brains to bits. He couldn't handle it. So we did about 3 tours without him. We had a replacement drummer, guy I played with in another band. Really good drummer. I mean, really, really good. More technical than Tom, our original drummer. So his playing was really, really strong every night. But there's a personality missing in the playing of him that isn't there because Tom's an original member, and his way of phrasing his drum parts is an essential element, if you really know the band, to do it.
Are you talking, Ron, about feel?
Yes, yeah. Feel. It's those millimeters, those microseconds between when you hit that snare, when you hit the kick, how you play that fill, how you translate it for a drummer. It's the same thing with a guitar player. You can, if you're a real fan of music, you know when Angus Young is playing a solo. That's because the greats, the ones that become endearing for lifetime, have that style. They have that signature. They have that feel that is inimitable. And too many bands are out there with other guys who are doing, covers of the parts from the originals. And like I said, you just add all this stuff up. And obviously that's going to happen when guys are in their 50s to 60s, 70s in some cases, for the bands I grew up with. They're now in there. I just, oddly enough, okay, so my wife's really into horses. So, we had this horse ranch, and we live up in this area where they do a lot of horse competitions. There's barns that's what they do. They just do competitions. And they have a bunch of arenas, and all the horses come in for the weekend, and the riders all ride, and the judges judge, and blah, blah, blah. So there's like 3 of those in my area. So my wife rides, and she goes, over to these places to compete. So where I'm in the area, like Alex Van Halen lives down the road. My wife used to board it, before I built this place, my wife used to board at a horse barn where Barbara Bach and Marjorie, her sister, board their fancy horses. Now that's, Ringo Starr's wife and Joe Walsh's wife. Mm-hmm. So I go to these horse competitions, and I'm hanging out with Joe Walsh, hanging out with Alex Van Halen and Richie, Ringo, and these guys, I don't talk music to them. I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. I don't want to make them feel like the first time I was introduced to every one of them, you could see that little bit of cringe when the wife said, "Oh, and Ron's a musician." They don't go, "Oh, what band are you in?" They don't go. I could just see them cringe. Like, I came to this thing because I don't want anybody to know me. I'm here to watch my wife ride, or my wife's horse ride, these horses that I spent all this money on, and she expects me to come out and support. They're trying to be anonymous. They got the hats on and the shades. And so when they introduced me to he's a musician. Great. Okay, cool. So hey, look at that horse over there. Do you see what it just did? And all of us look at each other and go, "I don't know what the fuck he just did. I know that horse is expensive." No, we all laugh, and so we don't talk about music at all. But it blows my mind, because here's guys between Ringo, George, Alex Van Halen. We're talking about three men who've been involved in changing the culture of our planet, especially Ringo. Changed the culture of our planet. Beatlemania, the music that they made in that 8-9 year period, changed the world. It changed people. It excited people. It changed fashion. It changed the world in a small way. Insanely incredible thing to do with vibrations, sound. And, to be in the presence of people like that it's amazing to me. And I have such an incredible respect for what they've done. A little part of me is envious, because, like the other day, day before yesterday, we're at the horse show and, hanging out with Joe, and it's like, okay. I'm like, dude, they have cake. He's like, what? He said, "They've got cake." "What do you mean cake?" I'm like, dude, there's like 6 cakes sitting on a table inside the barn there, and they're for anybody. He's like, "Let's go." So we sat there eating cake. We tried like 5 different cakes. And he's like, "Oh shit, I'm going to visit a friend. He's playing tonight. I really shouldn't have ate all this stuff because we're going to have dinner with him." And, his wife comes over. She's got to go. She has a driver that drives her everywhere. She lives in Beverly Hills. She's got to come out here an hour to see her horse. So she's got a driver on staff. So the driver's taking them to go see their friend. Who's the friend? Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah, my brain goes, "Oh yeah, we're going to the Whiskey to see the third band." No, he's going to the Forum to go and hang out in Bruce Springsteen's dressing room and hang out with his friend. This is a friend of many years, And in my brain, I'm like, there's a part of me that goes, "Oh man, that's how you wished it would have been for you." How lovely would it have been to be able to have literally hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank or close to it, and have a professional driver, and to be able to buy whatever horse from any part of the world and have it flown here, and have 4 houses, and have changed the world with your music, and have your friends play at a little place called the Forum. It must be. That's hitting the lottery, of everything. And, to be around these guys, and all of it just puts it all into perspective. It's just so strange that I'll spend a Sunday afternoon in this sort of almost out-of-body experience, standing around all these fancy horses out in the middle of farm country with a couple or few of the most incredible musicians on the planet, most successful. And they're all they're really at the end of the road. And I really, I was left with this thing when I read all about CJ and all these people posting. And I was so close to posting on social media. It's like, listen, all you people that are now shocked and mourning a loss, get the fuck out there and go support them when they go play now. Because it could be over in a minute. Yeah. And if you really care about this, but I got news for you. We get old. We lose our hair. It goes gray. If we're not losing it, it's going gray. And we get more feeble and we get overweight. and we have trouble, and we get sick, and we die. That's what happens, you know, and maybe at an even higher rate because we didn't take care of ourselves. If I were living the lifestyle that I live for the 5 or 6 weeks when I go on tour, oh my God, I'd be so beat the hell out. You know, the shitty beds, the shitty food, the driving, the stress, the setting up our own gear, doing the shows, jumping off stage, shaking the hands, kissing the babies, taking the photos, selling the shirts, packing it all up, going to the shitty hotel, waking up, have a shitty breakfast, do a long drive, unload the van, night after night after night after night.
Ron, you're the music version of Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, are you?
Yes, it's what it's like, man. It's really what it's like, and we're all trying to get it perfect tomorrow. We'll take the lessons we learned last night. But, you know, that's the funny part of the allure. You know, I talk about the sort of heroin-esque quality of being a musician, you know, the addiction. And one of the charms is that every day you get to wake up and be somebody, whoever you want to be. If you want to be Mr. Cocky, if you want to be Mr. Warmth, if you want to be Mr. Quiet, if you want to be Mr. Goofy, you can be whoever the hell you want to be. And if it doesn't work today, we're going to be in a new city tomorrow, and I can try it all over again. And it's that there's this sort of appeal to it. There's not a lot of intimacy going on in your life except for the four of the fuckers you're with, you know. if you don't kill each other or sport, you know, then you get really close, and you know, you learn how to fight and let it go, and then the next day you're right back to, you know, having to watch each other's back, you know. So, but there's a real lack of intimacy. And, you know, it's just kind of weird, man. It's a very, very hard thing, especially as you get older. And I don't know, you know, it's like I was talking to my god kid, you know, he's 20 years old. I'm like, so what's, you know, you're out there trying to get laid and, you know, live that 20-year-old life and wear whatever clothes 20-year-olds wear and do the thing. I'm like, so what's happening in music? I know you're into music because his dad raised him on really good music. He's like, well, the big thing now is thousands of kids go packing, like they'll just rent a warehouse in downtown LA. And they go in there and some tech nerd plugs in his computer to a really nice PA that they brought in for the day, and it's AI. They plug it into an AI music generating software that makes dance music. And the whole trip of it is that music will never happen again. It's created in the moment, instantaneously, spontaneously, and its ebb and its flow and its dynamic and its chord structure and its melody and all of that was created by a computer in the moment. And it is that immediacy and that transience that is the hook. And from what I hear, it's pretty goddamn good because these softwares have combed every piece of recorded music ever made. And it knows what sold a lot of records. And it knows what moves people. So it knows how to make stuff that sounds warm to the ear and familiar, and a dance groove that's familiar. And it takes it a little from Motown, a little from Rammstein, and a little from, you know, it's like, and it's crazy. And part of me goes, fuck that, you know? It's like, give me a guy with a guitar.
Yeah.
But this is what's happening, man. Guitar and bass music is not really popular anymore. It's just not. And it's, you know, I have these moments where I start to feel like my grandfather was telling me about Artie Shaw and his clarinet and the big bands, and you should have been there, and the music today is this, and the music and so I start to feel like I'm that old fucking dude that's, you know, talking about this stuff. But, you know, and then a band like Greta Van Fleet comes out and everyone says, oh, it's the rebirth of Led Zeppelin. I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. It's not. There ain't no John Bonham in the band. There ain't no Jimmy Page in the band. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, John Paul Jones, an incredible arranger. You know, Jimmy Page, an amazing producer. You know, John Bonham, a drummer that will never be, ever be as good of a rock drummer as John Bonham. So don't tell me that there's a young band that listened to a few real Zeppelin records and a producer puts them in there and says, you know what would be great? If you guys pulled out more of that Zeppelin love, and we'll put that Zeppelin love into your records, and then they turn around and go, oh, no, we don't listen to Led Zeppelin. It's like, shut the fuck up. I know Led Zeppelin, dude, and you guys are trying to be like Led Zeppelin. Nothing wrong with that. Better than trying to be, Oasis or something. To me, it's like, so I really don't know, man. But for me, it's like, I'm just happy I still get to see my friends. I'm still happy I get to go out and play to my friends and see them in countries all over the world, and to, celebrate with them and to mourn with them. People who lost their husband or their wife, or, guy went down on his motorcycle, the things that life brings. And every year you come around, you see these people, and you've been seeing them once a year for 10 years. Mm. So it becomes like this big extended family, and the family gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So you got to keep it all into perspective, man, and wake up every day and try to still have the same gusto for it. And unfortunately, we still do.
Yeah. Ron, I want to get into the Manic Eden record.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Yeah. We could talk about.
Yeah, we haven't even got to that yet.
That thing. Yeah. That's a pretty short story, so that's good. So let's get away from horses and Ringo Starr.
Right. So, first question I want to ask you about that is, tell me about the phone call you got from Adrian Vandenberg.
Well, I got the phone call from him, and he said that he was a fan of what I did with Little Caesar, and that, asking me what I was doing, and I told him basically fuck all, and he was like, well, perfect. And he just laid out his vision of wanting to put like a progressive blues band together, something completely different than anything that the Whitesnake guys, I'll call them the Whitesnake guys, because that's kind of a thing that followed the project. And he said that, so now this is circa 1993, 94. So grunge is raging, it's exploding. We're now into like the second Pearl Jam record and the second Soundgarden record and second Nirvana record. So it isn't going away. It's completely monopolized MTV and the airwaves. And everybody I knew that was in a band from the 80s that was in that pop metal thing was freaking out, slitting their wrists and wondering, what are they going to do now? So Adrian saw that this was an opportunity for him to really get to play in a style that he hadn't gotten to do in Whitesnake because of the sort of obligation to be impresario, that comes with guitar playing for that kind of outfit. And he wanted to play more in the Hendrix, Stevie Ray, Wes Montgomery, Eric Clapton-y kind of vein. And so he saw this as a great opportunity to do something new, and that the whole alternative thing could be a blessing in disguise. And I was down for all of that. And he said that he had the bulk of the record written. There was about 4 songs that weren't finished yet that would need melodies and lyrics. The rest he's already written and kind of demoed. So we sent it over. I liked it. We were like, okay, let's do this. We didn't even get together and play. We were just like, yeah, I like what I heard. You know what I sing like. I'll write some songs. I'll go in, get in front of the microphone. I'll sing. You tell me if you like it or you don't. And he's like, cool. So we did. We rented the studio in North Hollywood, and Tom Fletcher was producing. And, I didn't know these guys personally. I get to the studio, and, I rolled in around noon, 1 o'clock, thinking I'd be on the early side. They were already up and working for a few hours, and found out that Tommy Aldridge bicycled 40 miles a day. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Rock and rollers that bicycle 40 miles. And Adrian's like a vegetarian, and Rudy's like a vegetarian. And I'm like, I show up with like some chili burgers from down the street, And I'm like, okay, well, you guys are, you've been doing this a long time, and you're all healthy and all that. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And, me and Tom Fletcher were fighting with the band because they wanted to start at 10 in the morning, and me and Fletcher were saying that that's against rock and roll rules. You don't make rock and roll at 10 o'clock in the morning. So we agreed that we would have a starting time of like 1 o'clock. Fletcher wanted to start at like 5 and work through the night. And they were like, no, we're in bed by 11. You know, so like, okay, here we go. And it was a lot of fun. It was a whole lot of us just kind of playing and coming in and listening to it. And there were times that Adrian would do solos, and right as he got to the last couple of bars of the solo, he would start, he was cellularly programmed for a decade that when you get to the end of the solo, you start to really rip, you just start fast playing and just really make it manic. And Fletcher just kept hitting stop and going, dude, that's Whitesnake thinking. That's not what you said you wanted to do. And Adrian's like, okay, right, that's right. And there's some of that on the record, but we try to really just keep it as simple as we could. So we finished the record. So the backstory on the record on the business side was the deal was cut with JVC in Japan. So Adrian called me and said, we've got a record deal, and it's for JVC in Japan. So we've got full creative control. Whatever we give them, they're going to put out. We told them that you were involved now, because originally it was going to be James Christian.
Yeah, Ron, what happened there? Did you find out why he was fired?
Yes. Adrian told me that they just felt he would be more of a David Coverdale style singer, and they would pull the whole project more back toward the Whitesnake thing. And they really, really wanted to stay away from the comparisons because they knew it would be inevitable. And so they felt that they wanted a grittier, more blues-based singer and less of the 80s, I wouldn't call it operatic, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm a big House of Lords fan, so big bombastic arena rock.
Right, the power singing. Yeah, power singing. Mm-hmm. And Adrian and them wanted it to be way more gritty and way more, and I was said, oh, dude, I'm so down for that. I've always wanted to be Paul Rogers or some black dude in a shiny suit on the Ed Sullivan Show. That's been my whole dream in my life. So to keep things gritty and not down in that, keep it down in the vocal range, not up at the, kind of singing. And so they just felt, and I guess they never played me anything James sang on. But
I was going to ask you, Ron, I was going to ask you about that because I'm interested to know, when they were sending you the demos, there was no vocals on them at all. No vocals. Adrian would just sing the song. He'd play it in the studio and he'd go. And so he did that because he wanted me to phrase things the way I wanted to. He wanted to just give me a very rough roadmap of the melodies. And he really wanted he wanted to hear what it would be if I just took it and sang it. Okay, here's the song. You've heard it 3 times. You don't have to know it perfectly, but you just go in there and do what you thought you heard when I sang you the melody. And then we'll start to hone it in and we'll figure out the final kind of melody. And then from there, just do what you do to make it your own. Once we have that basic framework, which was really fun for me because, I'd never been in a band like that. I was always in Little Caesar. Every band I was always in, I wrote the melodies and the lyrics. So I was just singing what I wrote. So never in a recording project did I have to just kind of take somebody else's song and make them my own. And I kept looking over at Adrian through the glass going, was that okay? And then, thumbs up. I was like, okay, I'll just keep doing it. So the other question I have, Ron, about that process, Adrian's band Vandenberg before Whitesnake, he wrote everything, lyrics and music, right? So he goes into Whitesnake and he wrote some stuff with Coverdale. But did you have to talk to Adrian and say to him, look, I want to write lyrics with this band? Or was that a struggle, or was Adrian on board with it straight away?
Adrian was on board because they want, I wrote it and I would bring it in. And to be honest, there was a few lyrics that Adrian wasn't really comfortable with. I thought they were a little too 80s bombastic. And so I try to simplify them down a little bit. There's a song like Ride the Storm. That's a very rock and roll kind of theme, where, to be quite honest, my life was imploding behind the scenes on this, so I wrote like Dark Shades of Grey and Do Angels Die, dark shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dark shit where I didn't even realize till years after I wrote it that I was writing about myself as I was going down the tubes, so losing marriages and, being sucked into drugs and all this other shit because my mind and spirit were just not right. And so, those two, like the ballads, those two particular ballads, they had nothing written, and they liked what I wrote. It wasn't goofy, wasn't stupid. They liked the story, and so it was just, thumbs up, and away we went. Working with some of the stuff with Adrian's stuff that was pre-written, I had to change a few phrasings and things, and just because I felt they didn't feel completely soulful to me. And he was totally cool to change it and bend it and do that because he knew I had to sing it, and I had to deliver it, and I had to be right, and it had to be believable. So he was very open, but he knows what he wants.
Yeah.
He did the artwork for the album.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very smart guy. He's funny. He's a super nice guy.
He's tall.
He's very tall. Next to me, I was like, how the fuck? How am I? At least in Little Caesar, we're all fucking little dwarfs, But how am I going to stand next to this guy and not look like really small,
Hi, everybody. It's Adrian Vandenberg. You may know me from my 13 years with Whitesnake. I've got my new band, Vandenberg's Moon Kings, and you're listening to Focus on Metal. So I would say, turn it up.
So, yes, very tall, very Dutch, So
Did you get to play just the four of you?
Never.
The songs a lot, even in the studio.
Manic Eden has never played live together. Never, electrically. We did some acoustic things. So we built this whole thing in the studio. So I get back to it.
Yeah.
So it was for JVC. We delivered the record. So we finished the record. We're happy with it. We delivered the masters to JVC, and it's like crickets. They don't know what to do with the record. They were expecting a Whitesnake record. Nirvana and all those bands, the whole grunge thing, alternative thing, was not doing any business in Japan. So everybody in Japan just kept going with their 80s metal thing. And any band that was contemporary that, obviously weren't getting big record deals, they were still doing really well in Japan. All these 80s bands from America were doing really well in Japan. So when we delivered them this sort of progressive-y blues record, they were like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Like, this is Manic Eden. And they're like, well, it does not sound like Whitesnake. Well, we know that. So I think it did almost gold over there. It did well. I don't know if it was just out of curiosity, But so the whole point was, okay, so the record was paid for, and Adrian got control of the distribution for the rest of the world. So the plan was great. We deliver the record to Japan. We'll go over there. We'll do some promotion, let it start to build a bit, do a couple videos, go do some shows there. And then while we're doing that, TJ's manager, Adrian's manager, TJ, who he still works with, and is handling the re-release, was like, listen, I'm going to go shop this in the States and to Europe, and we'll get another good record deal, and off we go. So TJ starts taking the record around, and no one wants to hear it. I mean, literally, and our guys in America, they were like, nah, I don't need to hear it. And they're like, just listen to it. Nah. It's not a matter. It could be really good, but immediately what's going to happen is everyone's going to say, oh, look, it's Whitesnake, and no radio station's going to play it, and no magazine's going to want to talk about it. If it's not draped in flannel and it doesn't come from the Pacific Northwest, it's going to be pushing water uphill. We just know it. And we were shocked. I was like, now remember, I'm the guy who, I work with Jimmy Iovine and Bob Rock and John Colader, and my career went in the toilet after 5 minutes. So I never, it's not like I was a big singer. I was respected and, for what I did, but I'm in a band with guys who have sold tens of millions of records. So I'm the rookie. I'm the baby of the band. And I'm just sitting back watching this, and nobody would listen to these three guys' new record. And I was just mortified that the same business that just kept signing every poodle-haired band with your double kick drum and the spinning sticks and the girl half naked video, rock truck ballad, one band after another, coming out of LA, just like a factory. And then it all just hit the wall. I remember starting the second record and seeing Chris Cornell up on that and seeing Nirvana, and I was like, it's over. And part of me was like, thank God it's over. Because I'm in a band that was purposely put together to not be one of those bands. Now, it didn't go anywhere, mostly because of behind-the-scenes things that imploded on a business side of things. But my sensibilities that this was all going to change, that this couldn't keep going, that kids wanted an alternative. And that's the label they gave all this music, alternative, oddly enough. So nobody would even listen to this record. And I'm like, I felt really bad for Adrian and Rudy and Tommy. It's like, you're throwing these guys in the fucking toilet? And so at this point now, it's like, okay, well, we went over and we did this little acoustic thing for Japan, and the label is happy that we gave it to them, but it's not like they're putting some big push behind it over there because they're scratching their heads over the record. And at this point, everybody in the band now, Adrian, Rudy, Tommy, they got mortgages, they're adults. They've been living a lifestyle which comes with financial obligations that you just can't put on neutral for a couple of years. So they all start going, what do we do here? We can't just sit around and wait for someone to sign this thing and put it out there. It's looking like nobody wants to hear it. So, David was done working with Jimmy Page, and Adrian had to go back to working with. Now, we got put out through SPV in Europe. But at that point, man, it was so... trying to get anything going was so far down the line. Ron,
why you mentioned there that the label in Japan didn't know how to do with it. In some way they dropped the ball, because they should have been interested in what you were actually making to hear it before you actually handed it in.
They did, but the problem is that, every one of those other bands that was on MTV post 1991, before Smells Like Teen Spirit, all those bands, Slaughter, Firehouse, Bullet Boys, they're all still making records. They're not getting pushed, and they're not getting radio play in the U.S., but they were still under contract, and they're still making records. And they went from playing arenas to playing theaters, to the people who still loved it and grew up on that stuff. And, remember, this was the big, everyone hated grunge. If you were into 80s metal, you hated grunge. You hated it. It was just, that crappy Seattle shit, But the bands that kept doing that, they were putting records out in Japan and playing in arenas there. And so when the Manic Eden record came out, we're still competing with all of the same bands that kept putting records out in 88, 89, 90. And the label was like, well, how are we going to push this into that rotation, push that into the Japanese radio and into the market? Because it doesn't sound like a Whitesnake record. So to them, it was sort of almost like what it was like trying to break Nirvana or Soundgarden over in the States. Is it going to... Okay, quick story. When I was on DGC Records, Geffen Records, and the first three bands on DGC was us, Nelson, and according to the label manager, this little college indie band that'll probably sell about 30 or 40,000 records, but they're really cool, and the critics are going to love them. Their name is called Nirvana. They thought it was just going to be like college radio. It's the guy wears a sweater. It's like, he's going to play at coffee houses, and it's like a little punk rock, and it's a little arty, and it's little, it's not, there's no rock star vibe whatsoever, Now when, Guns N' Roses was just the last big band, and Aerosmith still making giant records, and all of a sudden that Seattle shit started, everybody in the music industry went, whoa, what the fuck? What do we do now? And it was like they dumped all those other bands. Screw them. Yeah, we'll keep putting out their records. Aerosmith will still sell records, but Aerosmith is not getting on the radio anymore. It's going to be Creed and Stone Temple Pilots and Nickelback or Pearl Jam or Nirvana or Goo Goo Dolls, but it was over. Corporate rock, the radio stations changed formats, and they were all, but it's funny because Nirvana was the first band to cross over the top 40. Top 40 radio was playing Smells Like Teen Spirit. That never happened before that band. And so much behind the scenes changed, and everybody was zigging and zagging. What do we do? So for the Manic Eden project, it was just really strange because those guys figured they had the best way to have a foot on each side of that fence, but they couldn't. They couldn't, financially just sit around and wait to see if we could just keep putting records out and we'll get some dates. And it was so hard pushing water uphill that it didn't have a life. So Ron, we just made that record and never got to do anything with it.
Ron, I know you did a video for Do Angels Die, but when you look back on it now, it was the first song to introduce the band with a video.
Oh, God.
That was a mistake, wasn't it?
Totally. Well, this is what happened. So we don't have a video for Japan. Japan the Japanese were just like, you know what? We didn't pay them a lot of money. Let's not throw a lot of money at this thing. They just can't see it going over. We're doing great with all of the other bands that are still coming out from the 80s. So they decided they're not going to get behind it. We well, fuck you. If you're not going to put it out, we're going to take our masters and we're going to go put them out over the rest of the world. So States doesn't take it. We get SPV and they're like, okay, come on over. We're going to do a little promotional tour. And then they came up with this brilliant idea of breaking the band with like a ballad.
Yeah.
And so we're over there going to Fnac stores, doing in-stores, and everybody's showing up just to meet the guys from Whitesnake and this tattooed guy. I don't know what he's here for, but, it's kind of like their attitude. And, so the record's coming out. We just shot this grainy thing running around Paris doing a promotional thing acoustically, and they slapped this video together and put it out in Europe, and it got on Much Music in Canada, and it got on MTV over in Europe. But it was a ballad. It was like this sort of dark thing. Put it this way: Tommy Aldridge plays for like 8 seconds at the end of the song.
I know.
It's like, wait a minute. It's like they show Tommy just kind of sitting around for like 3 minutes. This is Tommy Aldridge. This dude can play like 8 drums at once, and he's just sitting there with his sticks up his ass, waiting to play for like 30 seconds at the end.
Ron, what did you want as a single, or what did you guys sit down and say? Right, Can You Feel It? The lead-off track, maybe that should be a single.
Yeah, it probably would have been Can You Feel It, or just something rocking, the usual rock thing. But this is the weird thing, it's. I can't even, it gets to the point where record companies, you're pushing water uphill so hard and you're fighting the corporate guys who swear they know this. And remember how complicated the business discussions are going on back then. It's like, okay, you guys are like Whitesnake, but you don't want to be Whitesnake. Obviously, listen to the record. You don't want to be Whitesnake. So we got to stay away from that because, first of all, that's the kiss of death. Nobody wants to hear the guys from Whitesnake anyway. And we're just sitting around going, this is just music. Why don't you just listen to the record and get 20 people in a room and ask them which is their favorite, and that's the single. But it was so overthought, and at this point, man, everybody was running for the hills in the band. I was like, okay, well, it doesn't look like this is going to happen. And Adrian and Tommy, Tommy had just bought a house. So Tommy's got this big mortgage to pay. And then I think at the time he was having marital difficulties, and his wife separated. He was like, "Oh fuck, this is not going to hang out."
Did the 4 of you guys actually sit in a room and say it's not going to happen, or did one guy just go and then another guy left? And
Yeah, just that's pretty much what happened. I was just sitting back here in Burbank, and Adrian's back over in the Netherlands, and he's just kind of calling and giving me updates. And it's like, yeah, it's going to come out in SPV, but they're going to kind of wait and see. And, you know, we think we convinced them to do like a promotional thing, but just like acoustic in store. So they're going to pay for us to fly over, but they can't afford to do this. You know, no agent wants to book a band that the record hasn't been come out yet. So we're kind of, you know, in this weird thing where what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but they'll definitely bring us over and we'll do acoustic stuff and we'll try to get some kind of video shot while we're over there. At this point, I'm like, whatever, dude. You know, call me. Just tell me what we're doing. You know, and I think that was it. I'm sure because, you know, Adrian was long-term friends with Tommy and Rudy. You know, so I was kind of the odd man out. There was probably a lot of conversations that I was never privy to, but it just wasn't going to happen. And you know, if it was a band of guys like me, I would have, you know, meaning that I ate ramen and, you know, McDonald's and shit to just stay alive in a crappy apartment, I would have been ready to do the long haul. That's what it takes. You know, you got to do the long haul, especially considering what was happening in music and considering who was in the band. I was ready for the long haul. They could not afford to do a long haul on this. You know, they just couldn't afford to do it. They had to go back to, you know, do you want to play acoustically in Fnac stores, or do you want to get back with David Coverdale and go play to like 16,000 people?
No brainer.
No brainer. And the paycheck and the catering and the worship and the adoration and all of that. Not trying to explain to people, why did you make a record like this? Why did you make a record like this? And after a while, it was just like, Jesus fucking Christ, just listen to the damn thing. Don't compare it to Nirvana. Don't compare it to Whitesnake. It's just a band. What is wrong with you guys? And then, amazingly enough, it's like I remembered somebody I talked to. I was a friend with a couple of A&R people. Like one junior A&R guy was like, well, I was talking about, I think it's a really good record, and I was going to try to push it as this is your new band. And because, you know, Caesar had this great thing with you know, behind the scenes with Billboard, and, you know, all the people were really waiting for the Caesar record. And, you know, and I'm like, me? Nobody knows me. He's like, no, but then we get to step aside from the Whitesnake thing. Well, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me, dude. I've sold 8 records. These guys have sold 18 million. That's not the way to go, you know? And they're like, yeah, but everybody we talk to, they don't, as soon as they hear who's in the band, they just think, you know, they think bombastic, pompous, and now it's, you know, I remember seeing all these other bands from the 80s that were starting to, like, dress in flannel. You know, it's like, I remember the day I saw Chris Cornell on TV. It's like, here's a dude, if he had tattoos, he would have been me. And I'm like, but he's all over MTV, and it's a great song, and now I'm fucked. Now I'm the guy who's trying to look like Chris Cornell when I was out years before him, you know, but whatever. I was wearing the flannel shirt, and I was getting a lot of shit from the record label to shave off my goatee. And then lo and behold, every band in the fucking 90s had a goatee, you know? So we were the first guys, you know, actually Zodiac Mind Warp. He had a goatee. Yeah. He had a goatee, and I saw it, and I was like, that's fucking devilishly cool. And that's who I stole it from. And then, you know, I get all over MTV for 8 seconds, and the next thing you know, every band from Seattle got goatees, and they're wearing flannel shirts just like we wore. And I spoke to a bunch of guys in the bands that they're like, oh, dude, when your record came out, we were hoping that it was going to break because we hated all those. We're the anti-glam metal bands. That's why we did what we did up in Seattle. It was all trying to break the rules, a little bit of punk rock and a little bit of this and a little bit of Black Sabbath and a little bit of, you know, and it's like I heard that first Soundgarden record, and I'm like, oh man, there's so much like Black Sabbath going. But more importantly, I'm sitting there telling the record label, see, listen to this record. This is what I kept telling you when we made our first record. this is how I wanted the Little Caesar to sound. And you fucking wouldn't let me, and you made Bob Rock bring in keyboards and background singers and 18 million guitar overdubs and big snare drums. And this right here, listen to the first Soundgarden record. That's the way Caesar should have sounded. Then the way the band looks and the way the band sounds wouldn't have been confusing to anybody. But lo and behold, try to tell fucking John Kalodner and David Geffen this shit, you know? I'm just the tattooed singer. What do I know? I've never sold a record. And then lo and behold, a couple of years later, all of that same shit. The goatees, the flannel shirts, the 70s style organic open production is all the rage. And I'm like, well, I'm fucked. I missed my window.
Ron, I want to ask you about one song on this. You wrote the lyrics to Pushing Me. Who's that about?
I think Adrian probably just was giving me some guidance on that. Pushing Me was probably, when I think back, like I said, that's another song where I had so much anger about what happened with Caesar and the whole corporate infighting between Jimmy Iovine and David Geffen, and our careers went in the toilet because of their little backstage fights. And that was probably another one of those ode to the assholes that were fucking with my life. You know, another. Oh, in retrospect, I was really angry. I was really bitter and angry. You know, the whole Caesar second record is all about that, bitter and angry. And some of the lyrics I was writing, Manic Eden, now I was getting into my more depressing hopelessness.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
You know, you write what you know, I guess.
Over the years now, you have a label like, say, Frontiers Records, right? And they have a niche in the melodic hard rock market. And one of their things is bringing back nostalgia bands. I've often wondered, have you ever heard any rumours about them trying to get Manic Eden to do an album for them?
No, you know, Frontiers approached Little Caesar years back when Derek Shulman was working on them. And they approached, they got a suite during the NAMM show because they knew all the bands would be in for the NAMM show. So they got a suite at the Mondrian or something, and they were bringing in Mark Turenne, they were bringing in me, they were bringing in, whoever, all of the 80s guys that were still living in LA, pitching record deals, trying to see if they could have a monopoly on all that. So I go into the room and met with them, and the reality is they wanted us to make a record like our first record, the sound of our first record. They heard the next couple after that were more gritty, and they're like, we're thinking that if you made a record like the first record, and I'm like, okay, give me $1 million budget and send me up to work with Bob Rock again. What the fuck are you talking about? You can't make a record for like $20,000 that sounds like that. Every note is perfect. Every guitar tone is perfect. 18 million reverbs. I know you're in love with that 80s things, but guys, you can't ask bands to keep making records like that on the money that you're offering them. And I basically told them thanks, but no thanks, and left. It's not easy to do. And to be honest, Frontiers, man, they put their records out every 8 minutes is another record. They put no push behind it. There's a lot of rumors that are circulated around as to what Frontiers Records is really about. It's not about music. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'd say that almost every person I know that's been on the label has all kind of gotten the same exact treatment. They get some money thrown at them. They give them a record. It comes out for 3 weeks. They mention you on their websites and get a couple of publicists, and then the next record comes. It's a machine. The problem is with all of this shit, and Gilby did that. We put out a record on Golden Robot. I got snookered into working with those fucking guys down out of Australia. And oddly enough, the way that I got on Golden Robot for a record was because Derek Shulman, who when I walked out of the meeting at Frontiers, Derek was like their head of A&R at the time. And about a month later, Derek said, to Frontiers, you guys are just bullshit. I can't work with you.
And Derek Shulman is a legend.
And in case you're interested in hearing more from Derek, we talked to him on episode 336 way back in June of 2017. And you can hear that for yourself if you head up to focusonmetalpod.com and either search for Derek or look for episode 336.
Yes, he's a
Bon
legend.
Jovi, Cinderella, he signed them all.
The reason why I took the meeting with Frontiers is because I heard that Derek Shulman was now running A&R. So I went in there, and Derek just sat there quietly. Derek called me 2 days after the Frontiers meeting and said, Rom, you did the smartest thing you've ever done. I said, by not working with them. And every single thing you said in that meeting is absolutely 100% I agree with. And to be honest, probably within a month or two, I'm going to be leaving Frontiers, which he wound up doing. So then I get a phone call from him going, listen, I'm working with this new label out of Australia. It's this guy, Mark Alexander, and or whatever his name is. And he's really sincere, and he's given me a lot of freedom, and he's got, he's made some money in other areas, and I think that this might be a good thing. And so because why don't you meet with him and me? He's coming into LA. So I met with him, and at this point I'm like, what? I could put it out on the internet and make no money, or I could put it out on a record label and make no money. It doesn't matter to me. What's the difference? If I put it up on iTunes and it says Golden Robot Records, or it says whatever it says, it doesn't matter. But the hope is always that some label will have a graphics department and a promotion department, radio, and some publicity and some press, and what the fuck. Had no expectations. Sure enough, I was exactly right. Because what he does is he uses one artist to scam another artist into thinking he's got credibility, and he does nothing, absolutely nothing, for any of the artists. So he used us to get, I don't know, he got King's X on the label. He got Skid Row, I think, on the label. He got the other version of LA Guns. He got Rose Tattoo. That's what he did. He got me involved because I heard he was working with Rose Tattoo. I'm like, well, if you're working with Rose Tattoo, I'm down, because it's a rock label. Okay, great. And then he kept using his list of artists to get another guy signed. And he would give you, and the advance would come in just a chunk, and then it was excuse after excuse after excuse, because he was robbing Peter to pay Paul. He was playing with all this. So long story short, our record comes out. Actually, for about 4 weeks, it was really doing good. It was great on the Amazon charts. We were getting tons of press. And then all of a sudden, the next record came out, and literally crickets. Crickets. Nothing else for the band. And same thing. He convinced us to put a ballad out because he thought that was the most accessible track. We'll come back with a rock track, I promise. Right. Never happened. But anyway, he snookered Gilby Gilby Clark onto the label. And I remember Gilby calling me up going, what's up with this fucking guy? I've been trying to get this record finished for a year, and he hasn't finished paying me all the funds. And I'm like, dude, get out while you can if you can. He's like, no, I'm in up to my eyeballs. And, all of these guys. I mean, there's no money. I don't understand how a record label is what delusion they're in. No one buys hard copy anymore. Hard product? Who buys hard product? I'd watch my sales. I used to do hard copies or even digital downloads. I do maybe 8%, 10% of what I did 6-7 years ago. And that's what funded all the touring, startup money. Was all of that downloads money coming in. I could buy flights, and I could get merch made and all that stuff, and then put it back in the bank when I got back, or spread it around with the band. Okay, great. Done. Done. There's everybody Spotify's streams. So when you see someone like, Usher, who shows that he did like 69 million downloads and he gets a check for like $800.
Yeah.
What do you think my check is? They don't even bother sending me a check because it's not even like a penny yet.
The postage to mail it costs more than the check.
So they just, right. It's like sue us for the 89 cents. Yeah, good luck. So, when I hear that there's a record label still in business, what do they do? What do they sell to people? Where do they make money? How do they properly staff something called a label? A label, and when I found out with Golden Robot, I I had to deliver all the artwork, all the photography, everything. They don't have anybody in house to do graphics. They don't even have an accountant.
I think Ron. I think a couple of years ago, and you might remember this. Weren't they the label that said they were getting John Sykes?
Yes.
And nothing happened.
Sykes, and I don't know whatever came of that.
Nothing.
I know that nothing. And did the King's X record ever come out?
I don't think it came out on Golden Robot though.
Right. See, all of these bands who it ain't their first rodeo, they smelt the bullshit and they got out. And I was supposed to deliver a second record to him. I just called him up and said, "You can suck my dick. You ain't getting nothing out of me." And he's like, "Well, what do you mean we did well?" I said, "Dude, we did well for like 8 seconds. You told me 18 fucking lies, and then you moved on. And the worst thing you could do is try to blow smoke up my ass." I'm like, "Dude, I don't give a fuck. You don't even." I said, "Mark, this is how I know you're total bullshit. When I looked at the contract that you sent me, you're so fucking stupid. You didn't look on the file name. Says that it's a boilerplate recording contract for some indie label in Australia that you borrowed and changed a couple things and sent it to me. You don't even have a fucking attorney. So I know you can't even fucking sue me without going big out of pocket. The reality is you were supposed to send me an accounting every 6 months. It's been a year and a half and I haven't received one. So fuck off if you think I'm delivering you another record. And I'm taking my masters and I'm going to put them up on any sort of digital download site. And good luck." He got busted where he was selling distribution in Japan and he didn't even have it. He was doing a bunch of, and then I come to find that he was arrested in some sting operation with Hell's Angels down in Australia, and I'm like, okay, here we go. Now I know the real deal. Yeah. And he's a very charming guy. A lot of what he did was just to get his kid. He got a record deal he did a record with his kid and Tracy Guns. And I'm just like, I'm sitting there going, I look in the mirror and I'm like, I'm too fucking old for this bullshit. This is like,
Ron, as we go through the conversation, it's coming back to what you said about Little Caesar about 10 years ago. We have to be in this now for the music.
Just for the music.
If you're dealing with all the rest of that bullshit, it's like, fuck that.
Yes, it's got to be just for the music because listen, there's no money to be made. There's just none. It's basically, how do we figure out how to do the most efficient way so we can go out and masturbate in public? That's what it really comes down to. Just so we can get out there and go play and not be doing it in a room, doing it in front of people. Everything we do is just so that we can get out and play this stuff live. That's what we live for, is to play the songs live, because this is the reality. It used to be that a band would, it even happened on the Manic Eden record. It used to be a band would do pre-production on a record, and they'd rehearse it, and they'd get it all ready for the studio. Now all the bands build their shit track by track in the studio. I send you the file, you send me back the file. It's not till you get out there live, and after the 50th time that you played it, you go, oh, here's a better melody, here's a better solo, here's a better feel, here's a better tempo. It used to be you would do that in a rehearsal room before you went in, or you would do it in the studio. You just keep playing it. Take 64. Now it's like, okay, we do 4 tracks. We'll edit together the drum tracks in Pro Tools, and we'll start overdubbing over, and we'll start doing vocals. We'll throw some backgrounds. We'll mix it, send it out for mastering. Done. The last 4 records I've done has been done in 21 days from sounds to mix down, and those days started at 4 in the afternoon and went to like 11 o'clock at night. So that's how quick we've done our last records. And they sound good. They're honest, but if you can't make a record like that, man, you are screwed these days. If not, it's just totally cold. I'll record something and I digitize it and I send it to you in a file and you drop it into Pro Tools and then you edit it. It's not a band playing anymore. It's just not. A band can't afford to do a record like that.
Yeah, I'll finish up on this, Ron. I remember Joe Lynn Turner said something to me years ago about all these projects. He said, none of these projects are a band until they play their first live show. And I agree with him.
That's 100%, man. That's what it is. It's all just... and the music winds up being a reason to go play, you know, and that's the way it's been. You know, now the only revenue is in merch and in live. It's not any sort of, and that's why Aerosmith, Kiss, all these bands say they're never going to do another new record. Because when Aerosmith goes in to do a record, they're still, I know my buddy worked with Joe Perry on some solo stuff. And these guys, they came up in the world where, you know, you get a nice, really nice recording studio like A&M or Sunset Sound or whatever. That's where they're used to. They don't go to someone's garage. They don't do that. So they book one of the few nice studios left, say in Hollywood or New York, and they go in there and they fuck around for day after day, and they get sushi, and the driver picks them up, and next thing you know, they're into an album for $100,000, and then they sell, you know, like $8,000 worth of product, because no one buys it anymore, and they're just like, this cost us too much money to do this. And people only want to hear Walk This Way anyway. They don't want to even hear the new songs. I mean, it's so weird that people in this music, they don't, it happens to us all the time. I'm like, dude, you've been listening to our first two records that were on Geffen for like 25 years. You know, we've done like 6 other albums. Like, oh, we love those first two. And I'm like, it's just so funny to me that people just hear the new stuff. I'm like, I'm not talking the new stuff. I'm stuff I put out in 2000. That's like hardly new, you know. But that's the way people get into. I think everybody wants to have this encapsulated memory of like from like 16 to 21. That period in your life where music, if you're going out to shows still, it's where that music got woven into the fabric of your life, where you got laid first, and where all your friends hung out, and they sort of memorialize that, and they you know, worship that period, and it's like this fantasy of their youth and the carefree and all the fun, and a lot of people get stuck in it. I see it with punk rockers, dude. I go out and they got this like reverse mohawk, you know, they're bald on top. You know, but they've been on a punk rock show since 1979, and they're still fucking punk rock. But they're still talking about, you know, all these records from, you know, 78, 81, and you know, it's just weird how music does that.
You sound like me, Ron.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I can't even. I mean, I count on one hand the bands in the last 10 years that I really follow, like Vintage Trouble and Chris Stapleton and like Black Keys and Rival Sons, and that's just a few off the top of my head where I just like, fuck, these guys are good, and I do a deeper dive on them. And then there's other bands I'm like, yeah, okay, one good song, let's see if they got any more. Never hear from them again.
Yeah,
you know, and. You know, people tell me, oh, no, dude, they put out like 3 more records. I'm like, hasn't come across my consciousness, and I'm not going to go digging for it. Now when I'm on, God, you're on Facebook, and every third fucking post is come listen to my new song. And it's like, God, you know, it's like gets to the point that you're just getting beat over the head on social media about new music, and nobody's really even paying attention anymore. I don't know what it is. It's just kind of weird. It's so hard to pierce that veil now and get people really excited about something, unless you do something really outlandish. I mean, you know, be like Kid Rock or Ted Nugent, where every 6 months you got to say something that's so fucking stupid that everybody starts talking about it on the internet.
Well, you're talking about political shit?
Yeah, stupid. Yeah. You know, they shoot up something with guns, or they make some fucking really harsh statement that is either something they diss some other guy in another band, and then everybody starts talking about it. And this is how they go viral now. It's just by stupid shit, you know.
See, that's one thing about me, Ron, and I've interviewed you a couple of times, but I've been doing this for 12 years. I won't talk politics in any interview I do at all.
Right.
I just don't. I don't want the clickbait on that.
I had to learn that lesson because mostly it was. Listen, I don't really care anymore about what people think. So I'd rather be honest, you know. But then it got to the point that things are so polarized now, because I'm really kind of up the middle with everything. I find stupidity in both sides of the people that get all charged left or right. And so it's really easy to get into a fight with anybody then. Because, unless you're completely drinking the Kool-Aid for either left or right team here in the United States, then you're going to get 50% of the people who are going to fucking pounce on you. And I had to learn that lesson on social media, where I would, I'd see the most outlandish shit that somebody said politically, and I'd post some. So I'd always try to be funny about it. Mostly is like, because laughter is the best medicine when you're under the tutelage or leadership of stupid fucking people, And, I'd get half my friends who were like, oh, that's fucking hysterical. And the other half that were highly offended. Why'd you have to go there, dude? I thought we'd start you with this and this and this. And I'm like, holy fuck, dude. Are you telling me that the thing I posted about isn't really stupid and funny? But they can't even look inward to their own beliefs and go, yeah, I got to admit that one was pretty fucking stupid. It's gotten to the point that they can't even be that introspective. So I don't even go there, because it's not even fun anymore. It's not funny anymore, on any side of the equation. And I look around, and it's the same way if I put on BBC. It's the same shit. This one MP who was the champion for the left just got caught jerking off on somebody or something. Some kind of shit. Which is funny. It's funny.
Yeah.
And if you make a joke about it, all the people that still want to support, oh, dude, why'd you go there? I always thought you were this or that. And I'm like, oh my God, you don't even get how funny this is anymore. Everyone's so hypercharged up about it. So I don't even go there anymore. It's just bad vibes, too much of it. So,
well, Ron, it's always been a pleasure talking to you.
Always a pleasure, Rich. Always a pleasure. Thank you. Sorry I didn't give you enough to edit through, but
no, you're cool.
I think there's going to be a lot of it that has to get edited out, but whatever. It's just a fun. It's a fun conversation.
I like it as a conversation. I don't do interviews.
It's a conversation, and there's nothing I ever say that I'm ever worried. I wrote a fucking book, and I said a lot of shit about a lot of people, but I try to be fair.
I have the book in my lap, Ron. I have the book in my lap. I had you on last year about it.
Excellent, but I know that I'm being honest about everything, so I don't have to feel uncomfortable about it.
Yeah.
And what am I going to do? Lose a record deal? Can't do it.
So Ron, if you get up this way up to Boston, I'll send you a text and I'll go and see the show.
And that's the thing. Just pay attention. You'll see when we book those shows, because I'm talking to the promoter right now about it for August. It's like warm-ups before we go over to the UK.
Okay, we'll have a good time with Taikedo.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep. All right, Ron. Have a good rest of the day.
You too, man.
Right. Take care. Bye.
And there you go. An hour and 40 minutes later, and episode 591 is a wrap. Hope you enjoyed our talk with Ron. And like I said, the guy, he can just keep talking. He might even be able to vie for the crown with Wild Mick Brown. I don't know. Wild Mick is kind of hard to outdo when it comes to talking, but Ron, he can definitely spin some stories, got some great memory, and just an unbelievable sense of humor as well. Always good to have Ron on. Hopefully we'll have him back on again. So like I said, we have some other stuff in the can. I've got some audio edited up from Richie. Some of it, Richie wants to come down, maybe do a little discussion on the front end as well, explain a few things. So see, how the schedules work out in the next few weeks, and hopefully get some more stuff out to you in quick succession. And I know also Jay has hit me up with a few ideas of some things he'd like to discuss. So you might even have a Jay episode, a little focus on classic metal episode in the works coming up as well. We'll see. Like I said, Richie's schedule's crazy as fuck. Mine is crazy as fuck as well. I've got to get this thing mixed. I really want to get something out. And so I just kind of pushed the limits of the day to be able to do this one. But yeah, it's been crazy the last few weeks, and no real end in sight. But with every episode we put out, we keep getting one step closer to that mythical episode 600, which, way back when we first started this over a decade ago, I never would have thought we would be even getting close to that number. But here we are, getting closer and closer with every single episode. And I will, toss out the big thank you to you guys for continuing to listen to us year after year. It is very much appreciated, and it's amazing how much this has grown, how many platforms we go across as well. And it is definitely amazing to see. But anyways, for this week, that's it. There ain't no more. Stick a fork in it. This puppy is done. So for Richie, myself, and everybody else here at Focus on Metal, have yourselves a great metal week. And until we talk to you again, as always, remember,
Focus on Metal.
Everything else is insignificant.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.